call the public hearing to order. Item 2, conduct public hearing to discuss the proposed tax rate for the 2021-2022 school year. Mr. Leopold.
Okay, we adopted a budget in the last board meeting, and so now the next step is we need to adopt a tax rate. The tax rate that is ultimately adopted this meeting, or at a separate meeting, if we would decide to go to another meeting, it'd be close, but we have to get it in by September 30th. May not exceed the proposed rate shown below unless the district publishes a revised notice. And so we published a notice in the papers, and for the maintenance tax, we're proposing the 0.872, and then for the school debt service, the 0.1655, 16.55% cents. All right, comparison of proposed rate with last year's rates. All right, well, last year's rates, the maintenance and operation was 0.9603, and the interest income was 0.11 for a total of 1.0703. The rate to maintain the same is here, and then the proposed rate, which is 0.8720 and 0.1655, for a total of 1.0375, which is still lower than the rate that we had last year. Are there any questions on either one of these first two slides? Comparison of proposed levy with last year's levy on average residence. Now, if your house did not go up in value, yes, you're going to see a drop in your property tax. But if your house goes up in value as much as the average market value of residences went from 174 to 187, then you will see an increase of approximately $70.28 on a house that went up from 174 to 187. Any questions on this, on how this worked? Basically, all this is taking your average value of the residence and multiplying it out and come and put a dollar figure. Any questions? The fund balances still projecting the same fund balances from the budget meeting last time. The maintenance operation fund balance after everything is said and done should be right around $8,650,250. Then interest and sinking fund balance $1,684,000. Columbus CISD would like to propose a prepayment of approximately $1,060,000 on future bonds. The highest rate that we can approve is the 1.03758 without going to an election. And in a later meeting this afternoon, we're looking at proposing the 1.0375. Any questions on this? Any questions? If there's no other questions, then, I mean, that's the public hearing on this. Are there any questions? Anybody have any questions? So we're looking, at dropping, possibly, proposing dropping the tax from 1.0735 to 1.0703, sorry, to 1.0375. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. Okay, if everyone would please stand for the invitation. Pastor Willie Mae Williams.
Good evening. Let us be in an attitude of prayer as we enter into His presence. Heavenly Father, we come before you today thanking you for this day, a day that we've never seen and a day that we will never see again. We lift your name up to your Son, Jesus Christ. And now, Lord, as we go forward this night, continue to clear the path of all of the school board members and administration that make sound judgment on behalf of this community. Guide them. Touch their hearts. Clear their minds to do what's needed to be done for each and every last child that comes through the system. And now, Lord, as we go forward, we just like to say thank you for all that you do for us. In your darling Son, Jesus' name, the only bridge to you, we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For our pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
I call this meeting of the Columbus Independent School District to order. Let the record show the quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been duly called and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Opens Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We'll start out with the item 4, which is an open forum. Teresa, we have
Yes, sir.
participation today. Very short video.
Columbus ISD Board of Trustees. Any person wishing to address the board during the period reserved for public comment at a board meeting must sign up to be heard. In accordance with District Policy BED Local, all members of the audience who wish to address the board may do so by signing up prior to the start of the meeting and listing the topic or agenda item that you would like to discuss. Each public comment speaker will be allowed a maximum of 5 minutes to address the board. Any public comment speaker who uses a translator will receive up to 10 minutes to address the board. Only those persons who sign up at least 30 minutes prior to the start of the meeting shall be allowed to speak to the board during the public comment portion of the meeting. Complaints and concerns for which other resolution channels are provided should be directed through those channels. These complaints include complaints on the following subjects: employee and officer complaints, termination of employment, student complaints, comments about students that are not the child of the speaker, removal to alternative education program and expulsion. Vendors or prospective vendors who are currently or prospectively engaging in the bidding or request for proposal process with the district should comply and review any applicable bid instructions, which may limit comments on current or prospective bids. If the board president determines that there is a conflict with policy, the person shall be directed to the appropriate policy for attempted resolution. You must make your comments on agenda items in a civil and courteous fashion. Avoid using profanity. We ask that you not discuss students who are not your own child. Public comment sign-in sheets can be emailed in advance to Teresa Portwood, Secretary to the Superintendent, at teresa.portwood@cisdschools.org. Thank you for your participation.
Okay, so we have 2 this evening. First one up is Mr. Benny Zychek.
How are y'all this evening?
Doing good.
I don't have much. It was a couple of things I wanted to bring up that's on the agenda itself, and something she just said here in the open forum, you're allowed a maximum of 5 minutes to speak, but on your agenda it says 3 minutes. And I was curious about that, if that was just a typo, or are we bringing down the amount of time that people can speak?
So the logic.
And if that happened, she just said 5 minutes, and if it's 3 minutes, is it to stop people from speaking as much? Or is that per meeting are we changing? And if y'all did change that, when did that happen? That was my question. The other one is it's actually on item 7, but it has a code that is called DED local, is a discussion of possible action on it. And when I look through the codes, there is no DED. So I don't know what policy y'all are referring to there. And I don't know if that was a typo either. I have no idea. So it's hard to look, when you look at the agenda, to see if you want to come and speak on something when it's wrong on the paperwork. Just want to bring that to y'all's attention.
Okay, thank you. Next up is going to be Mr. Chris Christensen.
Hey, thank you. I live about a block from here, been living here for almost 30 years. 4 of my boys graduated from school here. And I've lived through all the hurricanes, tropical storms, every disaster that you can imagine. Back in early June, we had a pretty heavy rainstorm that followed after a week of wet weather. Not record-setting by any stretch, but unusually wet. And during the storm, stepped out the front door, and I was ankle deep in water. We got kind of panicky. My wife got kind of scared. It was literally millimeters from topping the foundation of the house. So I got in the car, drove around, found that south of the softball complex here, all of the drainage ditches were full and overflowing. The culverts under the driveway that runs east-west out of the new gym area south of the softball field, those culverts were inundated, and the water was leaving that and jumping over the road, and eventually making it down to my house, my driveway. The sewer drain, the sewer drops on St. Paul Drive were overwhelmed with the amount of water that was coming through them. Everything was washed out of my driveway. It was like a river going through there. So we've got a little drainage problem. And as I mentioned, this has never happened before in the near 30 years that we've lived there. So I've talked with the city manager, Don Warshak. I met with him today, along with Mike Fonchik. We looked at the drainage ditches. There was some question as to whether some of the drainage ditches along Malentz are on school property or city property. They're going to have to research that. But it's pretty apparent that they're shallow. And to my way of thinking, my engineering training tells me that those culverts that were there before the softball field was built were sufficient for the drainage at the time, but they're not anymore. Also, the culvert that goes under, it changes the name when it makes the turn west down south of the school. I don't remember what that street is called. That drainage has been there for many, many years. Was sufficient before, but now we've got about an acre or more, 45,000 square feet more or less, of new non-permeable area that has to drain and drain out. So I know Mr. Connor, we've had some correspondence back and forth. I've got a copy for the board of the last one, since I didn't notice that you were copied in to it. If you personally, don't find it appealing to deal with it, if you'd rather give someone like Kenny, your maintenance supervisor, give that task to him to work with us on the engineering aspects of it, that's fine with me. I'm not really interested in finger pointing, recriminations, name calling, or any of that kind of stuff. I'm a technical person. I like to see results. And I think you have my number. You should have. If you want to call and get with me, and then I'll just pass these out to you guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. If no other public participation, we will move on to item 5, communications and reports. Does anyone have any questions on the campus report or the campus financials? If not, we'll move on to item 6, which is the consent agenda. Does anybody on the board would like to pull out on consent agenda anything, any questions, anything? And if not, we'll need a motion to consent agenda. Scott moves. Second. Robert seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Agenda is consented. Should be said. Number 7, regular business action items. Discussion and possible action regarding approval of resolution affirming the investment policy and designation investment officers. Mr. Leopold.
All right. Just the investment policy is something we have to review each year. No big changes this year. No changes that are substantial. So just to talk about an investment authority, the superintendent or designee by the board in a resolution. So that is what we're looking to pass tonight. And so we're asking you to designate the superintendent and myself as the investment officers for the district. Required investment training. The initial training is 10 hours for the first year, and then every 2 years after that, Mr. Connor and myself have to take training for 8 hours for every 2 years. We can do 4 1 year and 4 the next year, or we can just go 8 hours all in 1 year, whichever one suits our schedule. That's what we can do. I typically try to go to a short one each year, 5 hour, 6 hour one each year, but that's not to say I have to. I just have to get 8 hours every 2 years. Investment strategies. Understand the suitability of investment to the financial requirements of the district. Preservation and safety of principal. That's a big thing in the school districts. One thing that we can't go out and buy risky investments and take a chance with the school district's money or fund balance. Liquidity. So I can't go invest in something, I'm, could be here for 5 years, could be here for 10. I can't go and put our money into something that's can't be pulled out for 20 years. I mean, I can't actually do it for, more than a year. So it's liquidity is another one. Markability of an investment if need arises to liquidate the investment before maturity. So I have to have a way out. If I go and invest in something that's, a 9-month thing, if we would need it, I have to have a way to get it back out. Diversification, investment portfolio, and yield. So these are all the things that, for the investment strategies that we have to take a look at. Personal business interest. I can't go invest in something that I have personal business interest, or Mr. Connor has personal business interest in. Quarterly investment reports, have to do them quarterly. We have to give you an investment report each quarter, letting you know how our investments are doing. Some of the authorized investments, not all, I mean, it's an extensive list, but some of them are obligations of government entities, certificates of deposits, security lending programs, banker acceptances, commercial paper, mutual funds, guaranteed investment contract, and investment pools. Ours pretty much go into investment pools and the banks. And so seller of investments must receive and review the district's investment policy and present district a written instrument documenting this along with procedures that will be followed. Brokers must be approved by the board. So you have to approve them if, one thing in this one, any bank in our area is one that's approved in our investment policy. That's what you're improving in the investment policy. Donations, scholarship funds may be invested using the same guidelines unless otherwise specified by the terms of the gift. So if we get a scholarship donation, we can invest the same way we would with our regular fund balance and those things. Electronic fund transfers, additionally may use electronic fund to invest. All funds are collected and controlled by the district. So it is allowed to use electronic funds transfer. We don't use them very often, just it's we're in Columbus. We can drive down to the bank and do it in person. But we could if we had to. If something happened and I needed to move money from, this account to another account, I could do it electronically. Internal controls, 7 controls are listed. And so the 7 controls include separation of transaction authority from accounting and record keeping, and electronic transfers of funds, avoidance of collusion, custodial safekeeping, clear delegation of authority, written confirmation of telephone transactions, documentation of dealer questionnaires, quotations and bids, evaluations, transactions and rationale, and avoidance of barrier form securities. So these are some of the things that, just kind of a quick overview of the investment policy. I put the investment policy into your board drive. And so if you have any questions on it, let me know.
What did we do before?
Pretty much, well, here's the deal. I go to meetings, and I'll go to the investment strategy, and that's one thing they'll promote is it's usually someone there that will, say, hey, invest in our things. Well, I tell them, we were getting 1.01%, and they, never mind, because they're not offering anything any better. I mean, if you go and look right now, 0.6 is what we're getting right now. We're not receiving anything better. I go and look at our funds, our investment pools, which is, we do have some money in there, but not a lot. They're not paying not even half of, or right at half of what our bank has offered us. Our banks have been very, kind to us, and, both our banks that we were dealing with, we just moved over from one bank to another. Both of them have been very, very kind to us in the interest rate they offer us. So in our situations, if you go and look, it's close now, but in order for us to even put money into a certificate of deposit, we'd have to go a year out to go above what we were getting just in our regular bank accounts. So the whole time I've been here, the interest rates have been so low that our banks have offered us better rates than what we can get somewhere else. When I would announce what our interest rates were before, everybody in the room would be like, are you, they were in disbelief. So, I mean, what's been used in the past mostly are the investment pools, just because their safety and their liquidity. You can make a bank transfer the day of. And so your investment pools are just the main thing that, people would use. When I say investment pools, you have text pool. 3 of the big ones are First Public, text pool, and Texas Class. First.
First.
Yeah. That's 3 of your bigger ones. Any questions? Any others?
If no questions, we'll need a motion to.
I'll make a motion to approve of the resolution affirming the investment policy and designating investment officers as presented.
Scott seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item B, discussion and possible action to approve ordinance adopting the tax rate for 2021, 2022. Mr. Cole.
Okay, we just talked about it in the public hearing, so I'll go back over a real quick recap of it. It's basically, stating that we're gonna asking to go down on the M&O rate, and then having an interest rate of 0.1655 for the INS rate, which would allow us to make a prepayment, defeasance payment on our bond, so we could pay a future bond sooner. And so it would go down 3.28 cents. So you go down 0.0328 in the total tax rate.
Anybody have a question? No, need a motion?
I move to approve ordinance adopting the tax rate for the 2021-2022 year as presented.
Dorothy moves. Scott seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item C, discussion and possible action regarding the approval of revisions to the 2021-2022 athletic, academic, fine arts, and extra duty stipend schedule. Ms. Burke.
Okay, we are asking that we revise our stipend schedule and add a stipend for the math teachers. As you guys are all aware, we weren't able to fill our Algebra 1 position this year. And so we asked our math department to come in, create a plan to absorb that position. We had them work outside of their duty time. They put in a lot of extra hours to develop a plan on how we were going to handle absorbing that position. And so what we would like to do is give them a math stipend of $3,000. We didn't have in-service time available for them, and due to the short notice, and we had to have them come up and develop a plan for us. And so they did very willingly, and they utilized time outside of the regular duty hours. So we would just like to give them a stipend for $3,000. Our high school math department. Questions?
Would this be a stipend that continues on year to year? That we approve every year stipend list?
So from year to year, we would like to continue this stipend and more for retention purposes. This is a high needs area, and so we feel like along with the Algebra 1 stipend that we presented back in August, the math stipend would be in future years for retention purposes and for recruiting purposes as well.
Anybody else, any questions? If not, we'll need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the revisions to the 2021-2022 athletic, academic, and fine arts and extra duty stipend schedule.
Robert moves.
I second.
Michelle seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same signs. Motion carries. Letter D, discussion of possible action regarding approval of a resolution of the board regarding the extension of COVID-related leave. Ms. Berger again.
So last year, we afforded all of our staff members up to one time of 10 days for COVID leave. Anybody who was sick and had to go get tested for COVID, if they had to be out for any reason, we wanted to give them peace of mind that they would have leave covered or paid leave for any of those things. You know, a lot of the reason is a lot of our people are afraid to miss work. Nobody wants to miss school, and so we don't want them to feel like they're going to be penalized for being sick, and we require them to be out for 10 days if you test positive for COVID. So from the onset of the first symptom, it's 10 days. So that can be taxing on our staff. And we want to, again, bring that back, extend that COVID leave pay for this school year, one time, up to 10 days for any COVID-related reason.
Our goal is to have nobody come in sick.
Right.
And not to feel that they need to come to work.
And after talking to a lot of staff members who have been sick, I mean, that's their first question. This is going to cost me how many days, but if I feel better, can I come back sooner? If I have a negative test, can I come back sooner? So we just want to ease their minds on that too, and I feel like that's going to help us out a lot.
Does it have to be COVID related, or can it be something else?
It has to be COVID related.
Like shopping or?
Any questions?
Okay. And if no questions, we'll need a motion.
If we approve the extension of the COVID-related leave as presented.
Scott moves. June will second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brings us to letter E, discussion of possible action regarding the approval of policy DED local.
So policy DED local is not a policy that we've had in the past. What we did this year is we went through all of our policies, and we were looking to make sure that we were doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Policy was up to date. Policy DED local addresses non-duty days for any administrative or paraprofessional employees that are typically on a 12-month contract. So that means it's a 226-day contract, but when you look at the year in the calendar, we typically work somewhere around 232 to 235. And so the difference between 226 days is what we are contracted to work, or that we're being paid for, and the 231 or 232. So like this year, we got 6 days of non-duty leave. Basically what that is the difference between what we're contracted to work and what we actually work. And so we give those as non-duty days. So they're days that we need to take off. What the reason for the local, DED local was so that we wanted to limit the number of days that could carry over every year if they were not used. And so non-duty is definitely is cumulative, and it's available for use as, approved by your supervisor. However, annual carryover of non-duty days shall not exceed 12 days. So this policy just addresses non-duty days that was not previously addressed in policy.
So so two things. One, this is a policy that everybody has, and when we looked at our policy, we didn't have a policy. And that we have people who have non-duty days, so we needed to write a policy. So we went from other districts, looked at what they had, and then we came back. I think we talked about this in the July meeting and said, hey, this is kind of the median between everything. So this is a policy that we've never had, but we should have had for many years.
Any other questions, anyone?
Do we have quite a few that extend past the 12-day?
Just me. So I have to use my days.
No. Any more questions?
Any more questions? If not, we'll need a motion.
Move to approve the DED local policy as presented.
June moves.
I second.
Michelle seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brings us to letter F. Discussion and possible action regarding the approval of the 2021-2022 Student Code of Conduct.
So Dr. Beard had to run home. He just moved, and the storm, we were panicking. I was panicking. So I told Mike to handle this. So every year, every 2 years, a code of conduct comes out from CISD, and it's based upon any kind of new legislation that comes out. And as it comes out, there are changes that they have to make to their standard policy. So we've adopted their standard policy, I think, always. And these are the changes, and you can see in our agenda item. House Bill 375, Senate Bill 248, Senate Bill 530, and Senate Bill 768. All of them caused a change in the overall student code of conduct. So we have to approve the student code of conduct every year, but it won't change next year. It's a biennium, so every 2 years it changes. So this is the changes that are a result of the legislative session.
Questions, comments? All right, if not, we'll need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2021-2022 Student Code of Conduct as presented.
Robert moves, Scott seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving us on to letter, or number 8, rather, closed session. So this board will now adjourn into closed executive session as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Government Code Section 551-001.